Hello, Lithuania. Great to see you. It's the first time this kind of environment. Very nice, relaxing. I'm really enjoying it. I'd like to talk about Europe, about the scale-up ecosystem in Europe. A lot of numbers give you a feeling what's happening in our continent. If you look to scale-ups and startups, the place to be globally, by far, is so-called Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley has 20,000 technology companies, small and big and very, very big. But Silicon Valley is not a city, it's a region. If you look to San Francisco and San Jose, it's not much bigger than Vilnius. It doesn't have to be really big to be great. If you look to Europe, the #1 spot for startups and scale-ups is the city of London. It's about 8,000–9,000 technology companies in the city. But then again, London is a big city, about 10 million people living there. After London, you might be surprised, it is Paris. Paris is smaller than London, but quite close to the size of London. Yet, nobody thinks about Paris as a tech city. They're quite bad in marketing, but they're very, very good companies. The next city in Europe is also a surprise. That city is Stockholm, a small city from a small country. Once again, you don't have to be big to be really great. After Stockholm, we have Berlin. So last year and this year, Stockholm is bigger than Berlin. But then again, Berlin is smaller than London and Paris. They're doing also very well. That's the big picture in Europe and the world. Now, if we look into how much money is being raised, it's a very good proxy for the ecosystem. You see that the UK, despite the Brexit, is by far, 2017, the #1 in capital. It's a place where companies raised a lot of money, 1.8 billion up to last week. It's a lot of money. Germany comes second with 1.6 billion. Then we have France. It makes sense. These are the 3 big economies in Europe. But then you have, once again, Sweden doing very well, bigger than other bigger economies like Italy or Spain. And after Sweden, you have Switzerland. Once again, a small country. Then we have Spain, Austria, and the Netherlands. If you look to the number of deals of investments of at least $1 million, you see a similar kind of breakdown, i.e. the big 3, UK, France, Germany. Then you have Sweden, Spain, Finland, and Belgium. Let me remind you that Sweden, Finland, and my own native country, Belgium, are small countries doing quite well compared to bigger economies. So the message here is, again, is being a small country doesn't mean you can do very well in technology and in funding of these companies. Just a question of ambition and a mindset. Now, if you look to the investments, where is the money going? Last year and this year, once again, the #1 industry is fintech. Fintech is heavily invested in for the 2nd year in a row, by far. The second one, industry for innovation, for technology startups and scale-ups, is health tech. Health tech becomes very quickly digitized as well. Then we have media tech. It makes sense. A lot of things are now digital. Property tech and travel. I met today one of the travel startups. It's one of the industries which has a heavy focus in Europe. If you look to the amount invested, it looks a bit different, i.e. fintech is still #1 by far. 1.5 billion went to fintech scale-ups 2017. The same thing happened last year. But #2 is gaming. Gaming is also booming. A lot of startup scale-ups are raising money and making games, especially in the Nordics. So in the Nordics, gaming is a big thing. Then we have food tech, quite surprising. But then again, you have all this food delivery, like Deliveroo and Takeaway, which really raised a lot of money. They went IPO, some of them. Then we have health tech, and lastly, automotive. A lot of money goes now to so-called autonomous vehicles, artificial intelligence for cars, connected cars. So that's new. Last year, they were not in the top 10. This year, money goes to startups and scale-ups focusing on the automotive industry. Now, if you break it down in terms of what kind of activities we have in Europe, you see on the left-hand side the countries which are B2C oriented, consumer business. They are Italy, Sweden, Germany, maybe surprising, Spain and Austria. But the majority of our ecosystem in Europe is focusing on B2B. Belgium is the highest B2B ecosystem in Europe. So if you want to be in B2B, Europe is a very good place to be. If you look to the average age of a company to raise money, then you see that it takes between 6, 7 years, up to 4 years to raise a Series A. So if you want to scale your company, don't think that you start today with a startup and next year you're going to raise money. It takes a long time to survive. So you need to wait 4, 5, 6 years. Not only wait, you have to survive that before you can really raise money, like a Series A, about €1 million, to raise your business. So it means you have to survive many, many years based on small income, some revenue, maybe some grants, maybe some seed money, business angels, before you can raise money. Too often I see startups, even yesterday, who believe that they're in business for 1 year. They believe they can raise money right now from VCs. It's not the case. It's an exception. You need to be in business to show traction for 4, 5, 6, even 7 years. Some countries it goes faster, some it takes longer. But that's something to take into account. If you're a startup, be prepared to survive for a long time with a very low budget. Now, on the other side, if you look to the cities, Paris has much more deal flow today than any other city in Europe. This year, Station F, the biggest startup co-working space in the world, will open, putting Paris again on the #1 spot, even before London. Then you have Stockholm, let me repeat, it's a small city, doing extremely well, doing better than other bigger cities in Europe. Now, if you look to these companies, how do they make money? If you're a startup, if you're a scale-up here in Europe, how do you make money? Which is the business model? How do you capture value, right? So the #1 is by far a marketplace model. More than 50% of scale-ups and startups using that model bring two parties together to do business and take a commission. So it's the #1 model used by startups and scale-ups to capture value and to make money. Then we have subscription, what SaaS business, cloud business is quite often used. It's a good model, but from a cash flow point of view, not the best model. Then, on #3, we have content-driven. You monetize content in media tech, for instance. We have a studio, which means it's a gaming company. You're making games, you're going to sell them, like movies, which is a studio model. Expensive, takes time before you have money coming in from your customers. Then we have, in fintech, interest charging, i.e. you're giving money and loans, and you charge money for that. We have freemium, not very popular in Europe, i.e. your product is free and you charge for upgrading to a premium version. Who's using Evernote here? Anyone using Evernote? 1, 2, only 2 people? 3, 4, 5, okay. Who is paying for Evernote? Okay, only 1 person is sitting in front. You have to thank him. Because of him, we can all use for free Evernote. He's only paying 1. There are only 8% of users paying for it, and he's one of them. And if that's good enough, he's paying for everything else. We get a free ride from this user. Then we have community. So building a community and monetize that. That's quite raising. Much more companies are doing that today. Interesting business model. Then open source. You create software, you put it out for free, and then you add services to monetize it. And then we have crowdsourcing. Today, you can connect with people to mobile phone. You can mobilize them to the number of activities and tasks. These are the top of business models in Europe. But like I said, more than 50% is a marketplace model. Lastly, crowdfunding is similar to crowdsourcing. Only here you raise money, small amounts of money for your business. If you look to the Baltics, you see that, no surprise, number one in the Baltics is a marketplace model, followed by crowdsourcing, and then subscription, the top three for all the Baltics countries. Quite similar than the rest of Europe. In terms of technology, you will see that the number one this year is artificial intelligence. Last year, it was not number one, it was number 5. It means it's growing very, very fast. Today, it's all about artificial intelligence. Money is going there. So if you're a startup today or a scale-up, it's important to really considering artificial intelligence because this is where investors believe in and put money on the table. After that, you have data analytics. These two go together. A lot of things are based on data today. Then we have software as a service, cloud model, quite traditional one, I think, in IT for the last 10 years. We have hardware. It's interesting because hardware is hard, and we have a very long tradition in Europe with hardware. If you take, for instance, Raspberry Pi, technology for hardware, it's made in the UK, not in Silicon Valley. If you take Arduino, again, hardware for Internet of Things, for instance, it's made in Italy, not in Silicon Valley. So Europe has a long tradition of hardware. And I believe the same in the Baltics. We have an engineering culture. We're very good in hardware. So for hardware, Europe is a place to be, not in Silicon Valley. Then you have Internet of Things, connecting everything to the internet. It's quite mature by now. We have the app economy, less than before. It used to be like number 3. Today, it's like less focusing on apps. You have the whole API to get data flowing. API is like fundamental now to business models and technology. Blockchain, the hype of last year, every bank was putting money in there. Billions and billions of euros and dollars are going to blockchain. Reality is, blockchain is not there yet. There are only, maybe last year, 10 companies in Europe that raised money using blockchain technology. So it's not validated as a business model. It's too early. It might come next year, the year after, but blockchain is overhyped in terms of validated technology for a business model. It sounds cool and nice, but today it's way too early for blockchain. It might change very fast. Then we have virtual reality and augmented reality in there. Again, it's quite hyped. It looks also very cool, but very, very few companies manage to make money with this technology. Very few investors are putting money on this kind of technology, yet it might change again in the future. And lastly, and very hard, it's robotics. Robotics startups are rare. It's very hard to be a robotics startup. Deep pockets, deep knowledge, typically from university. Everybody talks about robotics, but very, very few manage to create business based on robotics. If you look to the Baltics, once again, you see that number 1 is hardware. So more than the rest of Europe, you're hardware-oriented. You're into hard tech, deep tech. That's a very unique position, which I really would put out as USP for the countries here in the Baltics. Second is blockchain. Again, we're doing more blockchain in average than other countries in Europe, which is a good thing. And then we have software as a service. So the DNA of the ecosystem, Lithuania, but also other Baltic states, is different than the rest of Europe. You're strong in a number of elements. I'll put them forward for investors, for your ecosystem, to really make a difference with the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. Then you have also apps, like everywhere else. Virtual reality, which was quite low, number 10, I believe, in Europe, is scoring, on average, higher in the Baltics than the rest of Europe. Now, if you look to spin-offs from universities and knowledge institutes, there's Cambridge doing very well, and then another couple of other spin-offs, like coming from Zurich, coming from Belgium, coming from Germany, Munich, and you name it. So it's the top 10. Let me give you the names. But in reality, only 8% of scale-ups coming from a university. It means that innovation is happening outside universities. There are exceptions. In deep tech, you might need still universities, infrastructure, like in health tech, for instance. But in general, the majority are not linked to any campus. Of course, to be educated in university makes sense. You're an engineer, for instance. But as a spin-off, the times of universities are over. What about acceleration programs? If you look to the number one here in Europe, I mean, obviously, it's Seed Camp, based in London. It's one of the most famous ones as well. Then you have number two is NUMA in Paris, a number of scale-ups generated. Then we have Microsoft Accelerator. It's in 4 or 5 places in the world and 3 places here in Europe. Then we have Vaira. It's owned by Telefonica. It's in 4 or 5 countries. Then we have IMEC iStart. It's one of the best ones that I know, but I'm biased because it's based in Belgium. Then we have a European initiative called KIC. We have Startup Bootcamp in 4 or 5 locations in Europe. We have PI Labs, focusing on property tech in London. We have Entrepreneur First. And lastly, we have 2 US programs for European scale-ups, i.e. Techstars, which is also in London, but also in the US, and 500 Startups, which is a global program. But the majority of them are European. If you ask me, is any of the top 10 in the Baltics? The answer is not yet. So one thing missing to make an impact in the Baltics is programs which have a big appeal to European scale-ups. And I believe with the knowledge you have and the background, the acceleration programs will help the ecosystem in the Baltics to go faster, on the condition that you attract scale-ups for the rest of Europe. Don't be a local-oriented one. Try to be ambitious and bring the world to the Baltic countries. What about investors? The top 10 in Europe in frequency. Number 1 is BPI France. This is a French government vehicle. So the number 1 investor in Europe, 2016 and 2017, is the French government. The number 1 investor in the last 10 years is High-Tech Gründerfonds from Germany, once again a government-backed fund. In other words, it's the government who is the highest investor in scale-ups in Europe, both in Germany and in France. So if you want to have an ecosystem with VCs, you have to have government playing a big role in it. In my own native country, Belgium, the number 1 investor is PMV. It's a government-backed fund as well. The gap for investing in scale-ups, often it's by the government. Number 2 is a private fund, I think the most known one. It's based in Geneva and in London, Index Ventures, the most famous one in Europe that we have. Then you have Global Founders Capital, which is Rocket Internet, backed in Germany. You have Partech Ventures, Kima Ventures, also in France. High-Tech Gründerfonds, the government funds in Germany. You have Local Globe in the UK, Holzbeek Ventures, which is in Germany, Baldwin Capital in the UK, and lastly, ID Invest in France. Not surprising, there's a link between where investors are and where the ecosystem is. They follow each other. So that's the ecosystem you want to have, to attract capital, but also to have local investors playing a big role. If you look to investors in the Baltics, the most, actually everybody is investing here. I mean, these are the names of the investors in Baltic scale-ups, 2016, 2017. And you see these are very nice names, Atomico, Seed Camp, Excel Partners from the US. So the Baltic scale-ups, the talent we have here, really gets money from pretty much all over the world, being at Korea, being at China, being at the US, being at Europe. This shows to me that there is talent here. To get Excel to invest in the Baltics, it's quite a big thing. To get Atomico, which has its roots in the Baltics, of course, invest is great. To get Union Square Ventures from New York City to come to the Baltics and invest shows to me that you have the talent here. It's all here, it's all available. But, which is great, you also need to have your own VCs. And if you look to the top 1,000 in Europe of investors, unfortunately, it's very, very little from Baltic-based investors. The ones playing a role here is SmartCap, Karma Ventures, and Imprapatur. These 3 are local Baltic investors, but I would love to see next year a much longer list of 10, 20 local-based investors making a difference for the ecosystem to grow your scale-ups and become really like part of the whole European connected ecosystem. With these last slides, I want to thank you for your time. I hope you get some guidance what's happening in Europe and the Baltics. I hope you get some new insights and perspective. I hope I also inspired you to go for the next level. Thank you so much.